Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I had a subscriber make a comment talking about his problem making gains. He had said, hey, I had no trouble getting to a 1.9 times body weight bench press, but I still only have 15.5 inch arms. What gives? What am I doing wrong here? So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. Now, sometimes people need to take this stuff with a grain of salt. You're going to have a lot of serious lifters who are going to come in and be like, what? 1.9 times body weight bench, there's no way. But people need to understand gym standards are not the same as meet standards. You know, a lot of guys who train only meet legal bench, they train for powerlifting, they train using correct bench form and everything that would pass at a meet. You need to understand a lot of people out there might bench 50 or 70 pounds more than you do who still couldn't even bench what you do in a competition. When they're in the gym, and it has to do with the fact that there are no standardized rules in the gym. Lots of guys are out there claiming they bench 300 pounds, but they might not touch their chest. They might bounce it off their chest. They might lift their ass off the bench, stuff that you can't do in a meet, and they might actually only have a 220 or a 230 or 240 bench, not a 300 if they were to be forced into meet legal conditions. So people do need to put that into perspective when people say this. And the other thing we've got to look at is ultimately someone is talking about body weight multipliers, yet struggling to put on size, and people need to always put that in perspective. Generally speaking, why is it that body weight multipliers are not used in any strength sport in the world? I don't care whether it's powerlifting or Olympic lifting. Why are body weight multipliers not used as a strength guide? They're not used because the more you weigh, the harder it is to hit the multiplier. Meaning, it's not that impressive from a powerlifting perspective for someone who weighs 130 pounds to bench double their body weight, right? Not that impressive. But a guy who's 275 who benches double his body weight is actually going to be competing at the world level, all right? Particularly if it's raw. And it's because what we find in studies is that strength does not go up in proportion to body weight even when you're gaining muscle mass in a linear fashion. There's a diminished returns. That's the reason Wilks are used. So technically, a guy who is 50 pounds lighter than you, who lifts double his body weight on an exercise, and you lift 1.9 times your body weight on an exercise in a powerlifting meet and cross-class categories, you're probably going to be considered stronger than he is. And that's because, again, the more you weigh, the harder it is to keep up that multiplier. Now, what I would say to someone who's in this situation, it sounds like at the very least you're understanding that you need to build a strength base. You're on the right track. Look, if you've built up to 15.5 inch arms, you've gotten a respectable bench, your strength is coming along respectably, that's pretty good. That's nothing to scoff at. A 15.5 inch natural arm isn't that bad. Now, obviously, you can do better. Most people will be able to get beyond that given enough time. But the truth is, for someone who's drug-free, who's just training hard, who's a recreational lifter, I don't think a 15.5 inch arm is that bad. That's actually pretty decent. You're going to at least look like you lift if that's really what it measures at, right? But we're also dealing with the fact of when someone says they have a 15.5 inch arm, I think it's fair to say they weigh way under 200 pounds, all right? If they lift weights at all, they're under 200 pounds because there are plenty of even really fat people who have bigger arms than that who don't even necessarily lift weights. And again, 15.5 inches, again, and he's talking about high body weight multipliers on bench, suggests that he's probably reasonably lean and reasonably thin still. So what I would say to someone in that situation is you're going to have to focus on gaining weight. Let's just be realistic here. At a certain point, you are going to have to do some bulking up. And I don't mean you have to bulk and get fat. You don't have to bulk and get fat. I'm not telling you to add 1,000 calories a day to your food or anything here. I'm not telling you to gain 2 pounds a week or something crazy. You don't have to get fat. But you are going to have to increase your caloric intake. And here's what you're going to find when you do this. When people do this and they're fairly thin, those multipliers are going to go down. And no matter what method you're using to get to 1.9, whether it's a true pause bench, whether it's bouncing it off your chest, whatever it is you're doing to get there, doesn't matter. The same method, it is going to go down. When you put on 10 pounds of muscle or 10 pounds of body weight, your bench press isn't going to go up 19 pounds most likely. That multiplier is going to start coming down. But you are going to have to progressively gain weight. And when people are progressively gaining weight, again, those body weight multipliers start to go down. And the fact that he has a really high body weight multiplier does tell me that this is someone who is struggling to gain weight. This is someone who's struggling to eat enough food. This is probably a chronic overeater or undereater, I mean. The textbook hard gainer is someone who struggles to eat enough food. That's usually what it means. People come up with all these body types and everything and think it's something else to it. It's just a chronic undereater. So what I'm going to tell you, brother, you need to do, you need to start focusing on slowly increasing your calories. That's what you're going to need to do. If you want to get those 15.5-inch arms to 16 inches, keep focusing on your strength. Keep focusing on your gains. Keep working on those big barbell exercises. And you know what? Do a little bit of isolation work. I always tell people that, even though I'm big on barbell movements and basic compounds, if you have a muscle that you want to grow faster, by all means, do some isolation work for it. I mean, it's common sense in a way. As much as I, again, believe big compounds put on most of your size, if you really do have some muscles, and say in this case your arms, because you're worried about your arms, if you don't feel they're big enough, by all means, add in some curls, add in some tricep extensions. But don't ever neglect the big compounds to do it. Honestly, if you focus on both, you'll get the best of both worlds. Because truth be told, if you're going up on any big compound exercises, if you're getting stronger on a big compound exercise for a muscle you want to improve, that's going to do nothing but help it. If you throw in some solid isolation work to where you really isolate that muscle and, again, hit some other muscle fibers in it, maybe a function it's not used to. For example, if you're doing most of your big compounds for your triceps as chest presses, maybe the long head of your triceps not getting worked enough. Do some tricep extensions that focus on the long head a little more. It might help bring it up. Work a different function of the muscle. That's what I always tell people. If you're going to isolate a lagging muscle, find an isolation muscle that works that muscle in a different manner or a different function than the compounds you're doing. That very well might help to bring that muscle up because you are subjecting it to a totally different training stimulus. New training stimulus, again, for something that's lagging, is most of the time going to be a positive thing. It's probably going to help you. So in the case of that, add something in for that. Maybe you're doing a bunch of weighted chin-ups, but you're not doing much pronated grip work. So maybe it's not even your bicep that's lagging as far as that goes. It could be maybe your brachialis and stuff. So maybe doing a few hammer curls, if you're already doing a lot of chin-ups, wouldn't be a bad idea. Just add in some different functions on your isolation movements. Add in some functions that emphasize different parts of the arm than what your big compounds are focusing on. And again, that might be a useful key to help bring it up. And it's probably not going to hurt you. Again, as long as you're not exceeding maximum recoverable volume or anything, throwing in some extra isolation movements to add a new performance element to a muscle will more often than not help you if it's lagging. But you are going to have to focus on progressively increasing calories. Now, does that mean you need to go eat a bunch of junk food? No. Start working in some extra rice. Start working in some extra potatoes. If you're struggling to gain weight, people always say, well, I can't afford food. Anyone can afford rice. Enormous bags of rice cost a few dollars. All right, it's when people say they can't afford enough food, they usually mean they can't afford enough protein sources. And then they get stuck running over to a bunch of protein shakes. They run over to a bunch of protein shakes hoping they'll be cheaper. They get cheap protein shakes. They get diarrhea from it, all sorts of gastrointestinal problems, and that also negatively affects their ability to bulk and gain muscle. But generally speaking, most chronic undereaters I know who are stuck at something like that, a high body weight multiplier, arms stuck at a given size, can't seem to bring them up any further. It's probably lack of calories. Now, if you're an undereater, why is it that we always tell people who are overeaters to eat a really high protein diet? It doesn't put more muscle on you. That's bullshit. You don't need more than about 1.5 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight to maximize muscle growth. Anything beyond that is just personal preference because you happen to like high protein foods or you find them more filling. But it's satiety. That's the big reason high protein diets, really high protein diets like a lot of people eat, are helpful for body composition. They reduce appetite. Protein is very, very filling per calorie. It's a great way to control your food intake. It's a great way to keep from getting fat. But if you're a chronic undereater and you're sitting here trying to struggle to get in your 200 grams of protein a day, but you're not able to get in enough calories to gain weight, you know what your problem probably is? And this is, again, some people are going to be shocked when people say something like this. Maybe you're eating too much protein. And it's not because protein is bad for muscle growth. I mean, even additional protein beyond what you need to gain muscle still has calories. Calories will help put scale weight on. It'll help bring the scale up. Any calories will. But protein calories are hard to eat. They're filling. That's why they're so amazing for weight control and weight management. But in this case, you're struggling to eat enough. Cut your protein back, add some more carbs in. In fact, your food bill will probably go down. And you'll find that you'll probably be able to eat a few hundred more calories than you've been eating. You keep working on getting stronger, because again, clearly you're working hard on the bench press. You clearly care about your strength. You keep working on getting stronger, and you start adding in more quality calories into your diet. Bring that food intake up. Maybe lower the protein a little so you can add more carbs. Maybe add in a spoon of natural peanut butter every day, a little bit of peanut butter, a little bit of nuts, something to get you a little more calories in, and then slowly start bringing those calories up. And you do that for a few months, and I think you're going to find that you'll start breaking past your plateau in arm size. That's what you need to do, brother. So keep working on strength and work on finding methods to gradually increase your caloric intake so you can start bringing that scale weight up so that you can start gaining that muscle mass that you need to gain to go along with that strength you're trying to gain. The two are only going to go hand in hand. It's only going to help you to do that. But you are going to have to gain a little bit more weight. And that's definitely the situation that I see immediately when I read a question like this. You're simply not eating enough. You're going to have to eat more. And again, there's a difference between eating more because you know you need to eat more to gain muscle versus talking about just pigging out and doing a really sloppy bulk. There is a big difference. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.